Hi everyone, Chris Natzke here with Black Belt Leadership Speaking and Coaching with your Mind of a Champion Tip of the Week live on Facebook. You know, this week marks a very special anniversary for me. It was 6 years ago this week, actually June 1st as a matter of fact, that I completed one of the most amazing experiences of my life when I walked the Camino de Santiago. Now, if any of you have ever not heard of the Camino, it's been popularized in the United States by the movie called The Way. It's a 500-mile trek across northern Spain. And it's probably one of the most amazing things I've ever done in my life. And it's so interesting because there's probably not a day that goes by that I don't think about some of the lessons that I learned while I was on that trek. And particularly this week being this milestone, I've been thinking about it quite a bit. You know, one of the things they say in life is that the way we do anything is the way we do everything. And in regard to the Camino, the way we do the Camino is probably the way we do life. You know, I think about those 17, 18 mile a day walks that I was doing with everything on my back, and just what a great life lesson it was. And it was really profound this one day, probably about 2 weeks into my journey. And I had gone through you know, just a regular routine each and every day of how I was doing the Camino. And for most of you know me, probably know that when I have a challenge, I'm gonna go at it with a dogged determination, and the Camino is no different. I'd wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'd be on the trail at 6, and I'd rationalize to myself that it was because I love being on the trail by myself, which I did, you know, being able to walk at sunrise and hear the birds sing. But really what was behind it was there was this drive to get to the next destination. You know, it was like almost as if I was doing it as an athletic event. And in fact, I'd be up at, you know, on the trail at 6 o'clock, and oftentimes by 10 o'clock, 12 noon, I would have done more than most people do an entire day. And all that changed one morning. I came into a sleepy little village about 9 a.m. Already had been walking about 2 to 3 hours on the trail. And as I was walking, something caught my attention on the corner of my right eye. Now, I didn't stop because I was on my pace, but I went about 10 or 15 more paces forward, and all of a sudden I stopped. I said, I need to check this out. So I went back and I went to the door, and it said up above it, it said Refuge for the Peregrinos, or Refuge for the Pilgrims. So I thought, this is interesting, and I started to take a step in. And as soon as I took one step, I stopped, because my monkey mind started to rotate. It's like, oh my gosh, you know, this might be a tourist trap, or you know, I might not be on time to my next destination. It might be dangerous. So I stepped back and I continued on my way. Well, a day or two later, I was in another village, and I was walking into a restaurant one evening by myself, ready to have a quiet dinner. And all of a sudden I saw these people waving at me. And it was a group of friendly Americans and Canadians who I had seen the day before. And in fact, I had stayed with them the night before in one of the albergues, or one of the hostels. And they waved me over to have dinner with them, so of course I joined them. And I was sitting at the head of the table, and all of a sudden during the course of our conversation, this real affable man from San Francisco says, hey everybody, let's talk about our most profound experiences to date on the Camino. He goes, let me start. He goes, did any of you stop the other day at the Refuge for the Peregrinos? Now, of course, my ears started to perk up because I'd clearly remembered it. And then I started to slump in my seat as he began to tell this story. He said, man, I went in that refuge, and it was the most amazing thing I've done on my trip. There was soft music playing. There was a fireplace. They gave me tea and cookies. I read a book. I was there for 2 hours just reading and listening to soft music. It was the most profound thing I've done on this trip. Now, I have to admit, I was a little ashamed when I heard that, you know, because I had come on this trip for a means of, you know, spiritual introspection and being able to really connect and slow down. And here I was driving every day the way I was doing in life back home. So I raised my hand and I told him what had occurred, and I made a commitment that I was going to slow down. And when I did that for the last 2 weeks of my trip, that's when things started to become magical. You know, rather than be on the trail first thing in the morning and just walking right into lunch, I'd stop and I'd go to cafes. I'd have chocolate croissants. I'd start to talk with people. In fact, some of the most meaningful conversations I had were with absolute strangers that I just met along the way. And then I started to really notice the amazing Spanish countryside, all because I started to slow down. So, as I'm reflecting on this week, I'm also asking you to do the same. Where are some opportunities in your life to slow down? You know, right now we're in the middle of COVID and many of us have had slowing down forced upon us, but this can be a real opportunity for us to grow, expand, and to really connect with ourselves and other people. So that's my challenge to you this week. Where do you have an opportunity to slow down? Because you never know, the destination you're looking for might be right in front of you. So thanks so much for joining me this week. This is Chris Natzke once again with Black Belt Leadership Speaking and Coaching. And I've got a special offer for you down below. I have an online program that I'm offering at 90% off. It's my COVID special through the end of this week. So if you want to take advantage of that and do some deepening in terms of your own personal awareness, go ahead and click on the link below. And as always, provide your comments, your likes, your shares, and we will see you next time on the Mind of a Champion Tip of the Week.